Welcome to the Garden Shop How to Garden video. In this video I want to show you how to plant a bare root hedge. So with that in mind, I'll just show you what we have in front of us here, and it is a bare root beech plant. So right now it's soaking in a large bin of water here, and ideally if you're going to plant any bare root planting, it's best to give it a good soaking in water for at least 10 minutes before planting. But I'm just going to pull one out of the water here now and just show you what you get. So there's about 10 here in together, and here's what you're looking at then. This has been soaking in water for about 10 minutes now, and with the water I have mixed through some compost and soil and manure just to give it a good consistency and to allow the water to really stick to the roots. So there's what you get. What we mean by bare root, it means it's a plant that comes without any container or without any soil around it, and therefore you have a bare and exposed root. These are very useful plants to use when planting hedging, and the best time of year, well, the only time of year that you can actually do bare root planting is in the dormant season, which is really a month with an R in it, i.e. months going from September through to March. Ideally bare root planting is done from November to February. So that's the plant there. So I'm going to put this back in the water and let it soak a little bit longer, and then we'll go over and look at the trench. Okay, so ideally you don't want any roots out of the water. You get that right in there. Okay, so now over to the trench that we have prepared here. So if you're going to do any planting of any type of hedge, in this case, as I said, it's the beech hedging, you will probably want to dig out a trench. Now for beech hedging of that size, a trench of about 2 foot wide and about 1.5 foot deep is ideal. So I'll just dig the last little piece of the trench here. I'm using a garden fork here. You can use a shovel as well, works fine. Okay. Now when you're digging out, it's ideal just to keep the soil very close to your trench, because you're going to backfill that in afterwards. Now I'll just take out the bottom of it. So I've taken out the soil now to a depth of about 1.5 feet. I've already placed about 4 inches of manure in the first half of the trench, so I'm just going to show you now how much manure you should use. So we have here some well-rotted farmyard manure. So there's about a small forkful going into the base of the hole, just to give a light covering to the base of the hole. And what you need to do then is to fork that farmyard manure into the lower soil, just to mix it through. Again, a garden fork is perfect for the job. So you want to mix the 2 layers together. This is just to avoid any real contact with the raw farmyard manure and the plant roots. So ideally, if you're going to use farmyard manure, you want a well-rotted farmyard manure that's been breaking down for at least 6 months, and it shouldn't have any strong smell in it. If you come across stuff like this, we have here is just the root of scotchgrass. That's something that you'd have to take out of your trench as you're digging, otherwise the scotchgrass will grow back within the year. So I'm going to just backfill this trench a little bit now, because this manure is a little bit too fresh, so I don't want the bare root plants coming into contact with it before it's broken down more in the soil. So I'm just going to give it a light covering with soil. The trench will still be deep enough for the bare root hedge. Okay, so that's the trench prepared now. And now what we can do now is to begin positioning the hedging plants. Okay. So I'm just going to take 3 at a time. You don't want to put too many in the trench at one time, especially on a day like today where the sun is shining, because the roots can dry out very quickly. We'll get those back in the water now. So I'll start at this end. So I have a string line down here. Not essential, but it's a good idea just to have a string line there so you make sure you're keeping everything in a nice neat line. So there's nice good sized roots on these. They're very good quality looking bare root hedging we have here. And we're just going to lay the roots out over the trench, making sure they're all in below soil level. And now I've positioned my first hedging plant. What I do then is I just put a small bit of soil, pulling it in with my hands here, just to hold the hedge in place. Okay, now I can just leave it there. And then I'll position my next one. And you'll see now I'm actually not going to put it in a straight line, but in fact staggering it so that you have in fact a double row of the plant. And just one thing to note is, if you look at the plant in this direction here, you can see it's quite wide. When you look at the plant in this direction here, you can see it's quite narrow. So you should take that into note when you're planting, that this is the front of the plant. Okay. Okay, so positioning and spacing, you want your hedging to be spaced about a foot apart, so you get about 3 per metre in a staggered pattern as we have here. So now that my second one's about a foot away, I'll just backfill it with some soil. Don't worry too much about whether they're straight or whether they're too deep or not deep enough. We can come back to get that just right in a minute. My third one comes in. Ideally it's a 2-man job, but you can do it by yourself. Okay, that's 3 in. I'll go and get 3 more and then we can backfill them and just perfect them. There's either loads of water on them, which is just perfect for a bare root. They need a lot of moisture at the time of planting. So we spread these roots out, give them a good space to grow. Just keeping all the roots and rocks out of the trench. Okay, we get 2 more in. And then the last one. So we have 6 bare root plants in now. That's covering about 2 linear meters, about 6 foot. So they're in now. Obviously they're not fully planted yet. You know, they're a bit wobbly, and they're all probably a bit too deep. So that's where we come in now with backfilling the soil a little bit more. And I'll use a fork to do this again. Bringing the soil right up, back to the level that it was originally. Okay. Once you have your soil backfilled, you can now really fine-tune the plant itself. And what we want to do now is make sure it's not too deep and not too high in the soil. At this point it's far too deep, it's too low down in the soil. And what we do is, as we're planting, we give it a lift. You can see, if you come closely here, you can see the very top root. Okay, it might be hard to see. That should just be below the soil surface. Okay, obviously all the roots need to be covered, but that should be just below the surface, not too deep. So that's why we give it a little lift like this. It allows the roots to really work its way in through the soil. And again, it'll all be pushed down once I really step them all in again. Needs a small little bit of soil over that again. Okay, we'll come on to the second one now, and we're going to do the same. Just give it a light lift. That works all the soil around it, and then press it in. third one. While you're doing this, then you'll also want to make sure that they're standing straight, not leaning over. And give them a good press in. So that's the process anyway. You will continue all the way along your hedge, just backfilling, giving a little lift and then pressing in with your foot. Okay, so we can just backfill a bit more here. Like that. So just give them a lift, press it in. And then that needs a bit more time. When you have the job finished, you want to have a nice level soil, nice neat finish to the area. So we have that roughly there now, but just to get it just right, we get a garden fork, which I have here. And then just give the area just a light rake over, just to level it out. Also helps you find a few last bits of soil just to push in around the base of the plants. Like so. So that's the process. That's what you will continue to do all the way along until you have your hedge fully planted. And then aftercare, we've soaked our plants before planting, but after planting it's a good idea to give it a good watering in again. And then a good fertilizer, which we would recommend for something like a bare root plant, is what we call here superphosphate, which is a root builder. Again, bare root plants need good root growth to develop in the soil, so a feed like this is ideal for bare root plants. You're talking about 30 grams to cover maybe 3 plants. So a handful will be enough for 3 plants. So that's it really. That's the process involved in planting a bare root hedge from thegardenshop.ie.